quick question for you. Sure. On private lanes, and we have like a definition, there's carry-out service for people who have private lanes or whatever. So we send out a form saying, here are the criteria for a private lane, here are the criteria for private lanes, or to on the property. And then we have to have you sign a liability waiver holding the city for public services contracts. If we routine service, like we can't say
they were the other way, but what's up?
Those forms, since we mentioned you again, can I send them to you without you being offended? Okay, I just hate to have your name on forms. I thought, I wonder if I've ever sent them to you, but it's probably good for you to have on file and give us feedback if we're doing it wrong. Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. This is the City of Meridian Solid Waste Advisory Commission regular meeting for Wednesday, January 23rd, 2019. The time is now 1 minute after 4. We'll start with roll call. Please indicate if you're present. Mark Nelson.
Here.
Steve Corey. Here. Carrie Glenn. Here. Dave Neal.
Here.
Megan Larson. Yes. Bill Neri.
Here.
Scott Walters.
Here.
Victoria Madrigal. Ex officio members, Councilwoman Milam.
Here.
And Rochelle Klein.
Here.
Quorum being present, we will go ahead and proceed with business. First item on the agenda is approval of the draft agenda. Are there any comments or corrections?
Correction to the agenda, the approval of the minutes say December 13th, but it's actually December 19th.
Thank you. Any further corrections or motions?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to move that we approve the minutes as noted, the agenda as noted. Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded that the agenda be approved as corrected. Any further discussion? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the amended agenda signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the December 19th meeting. Are there any corrections or comments or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the minutes from the December 19th meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the minutes from the December 19th meeting be approved. Is there further discussion? Sensing the commission's ready for a vote, all those in favor of approving the minutes from the December 19th meeting as written signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? The motion passes. Thank you. We now move on to action items, old business. The first item under old business is an update on trash or treasure, a report from the council presentation by myself. We did present our recommendation that trash or treasure be expanded to be a citywide activity. It was moved and seconded that that be approved. It was approved by voice vote, so we have that. We did confirm that we have the use of Shandy and KC for communication and procedural activities, educational activities. There was a recognition that there would need to be a future ordinance change to allow for material to stay on the curb for more than 24 hours prior to the activity. And so that led to a subcommittee meeting that was held on last Wednesday, which I've seen a lot of reports out of, but I was not able to attend. But we are off and running to do this year's Trash or Treasure. Is there any One that wants to add to those comments?
Mr. Chairman, for the record, I will take care of the ordinance change here. It just hasn't gone up on our radar to get it done yet. We have time, obviously, but we will take care of that from legal.
Thank you.
Staff position. Any questions you have, we're open to, but we did meet with the subcommittee and staff and establish sort of goals and target dates for marketing plan. Discussions around marketing are probably the most significant, and marketing is going to be the biggest component of this, the education and outreach effort to the entire community. So we've got a plan in place for that and developing materials, and we'll report back continually as we have updates.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the commission, any questions on what you've heard or comments? We'll move on to the second item, solid waste roles and responsibilities, council update. David.
Mr. Chair and Commissioners, and I'll look to Mr. Neri to correct and complete any of my misgivings related to the ordinance changes. But we took the ordinance to council and had discussions with them. They were in favor of moving it, and we went back to council this past Tuesday for approval, or last Tuesday, excuse me, for approval.
Right.
And that was approved. And so we'll have some decisions to make in the new business sections around what you want to do with the commission makeup. But it was approved that you can have as few as 5 and then up to 9 commissioners, depending on how you choose to staff and how those positions get filled. And maybe I'll let Mr. Neri chime in on the effective date. I know we have some publications that have to occur as to when the ordinance takes actual effect, but I think you're going to need to take some action as a body to be prepared for that effective date.
So, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, so a couple little housekeeping things. So the city council, we had a very good discussion led by the chair in regards to how the new structure of the ordinance was drafted. I think ultimately the council was comfortable. I mean, we're trying to align what the roles and responsibility of this commission are that are similar to what other commissions do. And a couple of the council had concerns just about the language in regards to review and respond and review and recommend, which is slightly different wording than what currently exists in ordinance. But that is consistent with what all of our commissions do. All of our commissions have independent authority in certain areas to do budgetary items on certain things. And majority of what all of our commissions do, whether it's parks, historic preservation, they make a recommendation to the city council. So we try to align the language to be similar. This would be, so the council approved it on January 15th. Our normal cycle is we publish in our newspaper of record, which is the Meridian Press. It gets published once a week. And so the publication date of the ordinance is this Friday, January 25th. So that's when the ordinance will become effective. So after that ordinance becomes effective, the current positions of employee positions that are members of the commission, my position, Ms. Glenn's position, will no longer be part of the commission. We'll still provide the support as necessary, but we won't have the, oh, thank you. Well, we won't be voting members of the commission any longer. And then actually Mr. Neal sits currently in a position that is a public works designated position. So what I was going to do, Mr. Neal, if you were okay, was to contact the mayor's office and ask them to reappoint you to the seat that's still the same seat, but now it's no longer designated as a public works representative. It's essentially an independent seat. We did include in the language of the ordinance, and I apologize for not having it in front of me, but the language of the ordinance that we wanted Meridian residents on the commission, but also we wanted an industry representative on the commission that did not have to be a resident. So I think Mr. Neal fills the industry representative quite well. So if you're okay with that, Commissioner Neal, I was going to suggest that to the mayor's office just to clean that up for the next meeting, next month.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Neri, that'd be fine.
Okay. So I think that's predominantly the discussion. Like I said, the council, we had a very good discussion, but I think ultimately they understood, again, we were just trying to align what this commission does and consistent with the other ones, and I think ultimately they were fine. Again, they approved the ordinance on the 15th.
Thank you. Members of the commission, do you have any questions or comments? And I want to go ahead and make sure it's clear that while the ordinance says review and recommend ordinances and various other things, the commission should understand that if we have an idea that something needs to be changed, it is still expected that we would present that, and if we believe it's worth pursuing, then we'll ask staff to go ahead and draft whatever that change would be, and then we would pick up and do the review and recommend to city council on that. But you should not interpret this to say that we don't get to initiate things where we see it's appropriate. It's just common wording for review and recommend, but we're not changing this concept that if we see something that needs to be changed, that we don't propose an acceptable change, so.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, maybe to add to that, and I probably should have said this to the council, and maybe it would have diffused the discussion a little bit. You set your agenda, so you get the ability to set what items of discussion you want to have. So if a commissioner would like to add something to the agenda for a discussion, just because it says review and recommend doesn't mean you can't bring up a topic that you think is worthy of discussion for the commission. And then again, the review, recommend, request staff for assistance in preparing something, gathering information, whatever. That's not going to change. That's the same.
So members of the commission, any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, maybe a question to Mr. Neri. Is there formal action that the board needs to take to, other than Commissioner Neal's position, that the commission needs to take to assign who's fitting inside of what role, or does that fall in by de facto based on the new changes?
So, great question. So if you look at the membership qualifications, again, as I stated, there's one member industry expert that does not have to be a resident of the city, one member already resident can be under 18, which I think we already have that. So then all the rest are governed by the overall position. So there's assigned seat numbers to each of your seats. So that doesn't change. I just wanted to be clear for Mr. Neal's, because originally Mr. Neal was appointed as the designated representative of Public Works. And so since that position no longer exists, it would just be, the seat number would still be the same. It would just be clear that it's now fits under this category. So just Commissioner Neal's one needs to change.
So we as a commission have no actions that we need to take at this moment?
No, sir.
Okay. Moving on to the next item, item 3, sidewalk container placement update, council update. David.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. We've been continuing the conversation of the cart placement discussions with council and with staff and committee efforts. Council is, if I recall, generally favorable to the recommendation of SWAC, and we've discussed with Republic Services and our communications officers, Shandy in Public Works, about how to show the words in a picture format, because we think a picture is worth 1,000 words. So Republic Services and Shandy in our offices are working to put some draft material together to bring back before you to sort of show the illustration of what's intended by the ordinance. We're also working, we have sort of draft concept language that we're playing with, and rather bring both of those back to you in one package. There was discussion as to whether or not the change not being needed immediately is better off to be held due to the opening up the Trash or Treasure event citywide. We didn't think that it was necessarily wise to do a big education outreach on trash cart placement while you're also trying to do a big education and outreach on Trash or Treasure. That's a recommendation to you all to consider, I think. We're certainly happy for feedback, but we think that it's probably a good idea to save one and get Trash or Treasure out of the way first and then implement the cart placement. That also gives us some time to make sure we get the right message and the right wording that the commission wants to recommend to council. So that's where we're at the moment. I don't know, perhaps Rochelle, do you have any updates on drafting material?
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners and Dave, no, I was just checking. I've been working with our graphic artist to get some materials, and it turns out to be far more complicated than the simple diagram looks. So I should have something back for review tonight for the trash or treasure piece. I think Shandy has everything she needs from us, and then just the cart placement graphic that we wanted to be flexible enough to use in different ways. That should be back in tonight, I think. So I'll see if I'm going to check. If it's in, I'll send it to Dave and he can forward it.
So we're working on that material, and with the intent that we're moving forward with the carts in the street with the wheels against the curb, and however we need to make that necessary change in the verbiage, and also have the pictures show that illustration. So happy to answer any questions for the moment.
Members of the commission, any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, do you think that we should take action to recommend that they wait to educate the cart placement till after the trash or treasure event?
Commissioner, yes. I think that would be appropriate and would be welcomed by staff.
You met my bus driver.
Mr. Chair, I move that we recommend to staff that they pause and wait to educate the public on cart placement until after such time as the trash or treasure event has completed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to delay the education materials for cart placement until after trash or treasure. Is there further?
Can I amend that? Not to educate the public about it, I don't want to delay producing them,
Not to do the outreach.
not to implement the outreach.
Is there further comment on the motion? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote. The motion is to go ahead and delay the outreach for cart placement until after the trash or treasure. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. The motion passes. Is there anything further that we need to work on that right
Thank you
at
for
this
the-
time? Okay.
Thank you for the direction.
Okay, so we move on to new business, our annual activity. The first item under new business is selection of commission officers. I guess the first office to be considered would be chairman.
Mr. Chair, would you be willing to continue in this position?
I would be willing.
I would move that we recommend, nominate, thank you, Mr. Corey for chair.
I second that.
And Mr. Corey has been moved and seconded for nomination. Are there further nominations? Following Robert's Rules of Order, I'll ask a second time if there are further nominations. And then on the third one, are there further nominations? Seeing none, then nominations become closed. And again, as I've said before, if there was competition, I would hand the gavel to the vice chair, but since there's only one person nominated for chairman, I will go ahead then and restate the motion that Steve Corey be nominated for a term at the next term of chairman, and ask for all those in favor of that signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay. The motion passes. Thank you. And again, of course, I appreciate that and recognize at this point while we're in our transition that it's good to go ahead and complete this transition of bringing staff on board and getting into a routine. And at any time that anyone feels like they are wanting to become chairman, please say so. It's a fun job.
Yeah, thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
You're great.
My pleasure. Next position is vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Mr. Walters for vice chair.
Whoever's not here.
Mr. Walters, do you accept nomination?
I accept.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that Mr. Walters be vice chair. Are there other nominations? Are there further nominations? And as I say a third time, are there further nominations? Being as no one has presented any, then nominations will close. Scott Walters has been nominated to be vice chair for this coming term. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion passes. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is setting the 2019 regular meeting schedule.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I could interject real quick. With this being my last meeting as a commissioner, kind of by de facto, I've been taking the minutes and getting those to city clerk so that we have those prepared. Moving forward, is that something that you want to nominate a secretary to do the minutes? Or are you kind of, as a commission, thinking that your staff point of contact would be taking those minutes?
Thank you for bringing that before us. We definitely need to figure this out.
I have committed to be, even though I won't be on the commission, I've committed to be here at least until March, so the next couple meetings, so I can still take those minutes, but I just wanted, looking forward down the road. So.
David?
Mr. Chair and Commission and staff is also committed to carrying the duties forward if that's the pleasure of the commission. Certainly your discussion, your opportunity, but we're able to do that moving forward as well.
So if I may, then you would go ahead and take care of this until there was a staff position filled, and then you would figure out from Public Works who would be responsible.
That's why I like to say staff. Somebody will, yes, and we'll take that on in Public Works until we get someone hired.
Members of the commission, this issue has been brought before us. Are there any questions or comments on the issue as far as assuring that certain obligations that we have as a deciding body under Idaho law, that notification of meetings, agendas, and minutes have to be published and kept, and various other things? There's certain administrative activities. And of course, then the concept, would it be appropriate for staff to do it, or should we have a secretary or whatever? Questions or comments on this subject?
Mr. Chair, it would be my preference that if we can have some continuity for a few more months until such time that we fill that position and determine whether meeting minutes and the other roles are too much for a session. But I'd prefer that staff position take on the role of minutes.
Further comments?
I take lousy notes.
Yeah.
Noted, and I resemble that remark. Further comments?
Mr. Chairman, just, I guess, for the future consideration, the noticing and things are things that can be coordinated with the clerk's office. So there will be some assistance the clerk's office that can provide with that. The minutes, if it does become a member of the commission doing it, the Idaho Code requires summary minutes, so they're not taking verbatim minutes. It is just a summary of the meeting. It can be done, as the meeting's occurring. You can certainly follow it along on the agenda. Today's a pretty simple agenda, so it'll probably be easy. I know not all your commission meetings are that way, but just so that it doesn't sound too intimidating to folks, it really isn't required to have crackerjack administrative assistant type of skills to do that, so just for future reference.
As for my thoughts, I have been crazy enough to try to take minutes and run meetings before. It's a mistake. Clearly, I have been just ecstatic with the job that has been done so far as taking our minutes, and would love to go ahead and see things more or less proceed as they were, having a recording and then having the summary minutes produced and such. I would certainly endorse the concept of staff filling in that position, but certainly consider it if someone wanted us to take over responsibility. We could consider that. But anyway, further comments on the issue of whether we need a third secretary position. Being as no motion's been made, I'm going to assume that the commission is comfortable with our current structure. I can get some head shaking. I do have head shaking. Okay, we'll go ahead and continue with this with staff taking care of minutes and agendas. And if at any time you feel that it's appropriate for us to make a change, please notify me or staff.
And Mr. Chair, one other comment. With the change in makeup of the commission, I currently represent for the Household Hazardous Waste Commission in a quarterly meeting, and I'll continue to do so unless that new position fills that role, or I wouldn't mind continue to participate even if they do.
Thank you. So now back to our agenda, the regular meeting schedule. Currently, we're meeting on the fourth Wednesday of each month at 4 p.m. We can continue with that, or if there's a request to go ahead and consider something different, that would be appropriate. But I do believe this is something that requires action, so a motion to continue with the fourth Wednesday at 4 p.m. or an alternate time would be in order at this point. Any comments or questions?
Mr. Chair, I move that we continue meeting at the fourth Wednesday, 4 p.m. of each month.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that Solid Waste Advisory Committee meet on the fourth Wednesday of each month at 4 p.m. Further comments or questions? Sensing the commission is ready for a vote, all those in favor of, for 2019, we will meet on the fourth Wednesday of each month at 4 p.m., subject to change if there's conflict for holidays and whatever else. But all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Motion passes. Thank you. That completes all of the information, all the items on our agenda. The next meeting is February 20th. Certainly, if you have any subjects, please bring them forward.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
with the fourth Wednesday of the month, it would be February 27th, not the 20th.
February 27th. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one request I was asked to bring forward by Albertsons or from Albertsons today, and maybe next month. we have a wildly successful glass recycling program now in Meridian, and Albertsons is opening a new store on Eagle and Fairview, and it's going to have a full bar inside and snacks and stuff. And so they are interested in glass recycling at the commercial level, and we don't currently offer that. And we made it really clear to shuttle glass to the drop site is probably not appropriate, because that's really a residential program funded by residential rates, or at least that was the intent, as it was designed to be residential. So they asked us for pricing on what it would cost to have a 10-yard mini just for their use, not a public drop site behind their store. And so we put together what pricing would be, so that residents wouldn't be subsidizing commercial glass, and we confirmed with Momentum Recycling that would be okay to take commercial glass. But it is not something that we've talked about here or with council, and so I just wanted to bring that up today. They were going to try to have a representative here today, and they couldn't, but that store, I think she said, is opening in early February, like I think in a couple of weeks. So that's just something I guess we can bring back next time. And maybe it's just more of an awareness thing. I mean, it's not something that's built through the city, but anyway, they asked us, and so we said we'd bring it forward for them today, and they said that they'd be happy to send a representative next meeting to talk about it.
Thank you. Bill, I'm thinking if there's going to be a charged rate, then that really needs to come through here, and we need to recommend to council that that be added as another line item in the rate charge. Again, of course, it could wait until the annual review during the summer if the service wasn't going to start until October 1st, but I'm betting that Albertsons would want to start this much sooner than October 1st.
I think they wanted to start it as soon as possible, Mr. Chairman. So we just heard from them, I guess Tuesday of this week was the first time that we'd heard from them.
Anyway, am I guessing right on that?
Mr. Chairman, you are. I mean, so, yeah, I think history has been, it would come to this as a new service. I would think, and I guess I'm anticipating Republic has thought of this, there's certainly going to be other customers that would probably be interested as well.
Yes.
Which, again, be careful what you ask for, right? Because you may have a lot of people that want to do it, and you may not necessarily have the capacity to do that. But that's something normally I think should come to this commission, but February 27th may be too far away. So I don't know if the commission would want to entertain a special meeting in a couple weeks, and then we could, because then it still has to go to council, still has to get published. That process itself takes about a month to put into place. Now, again, Albertsons can wait till all the process is done, but they're not going to want to wait till October. If they have to wait till April 1st, that they could probably live with that. But that I do think maybe the commission might want to consider a special meeting for that purpose, so you can hear it, see what's recommended, ask the questions like that of, how's this going to impact service? How many people can you support doing this? Is this it sounds like a good thing, but you can have too much of a good thing.
Mr. Chairman, to that point, we did send, our legal department drafted an agreement with Momentum Glass, and they have it under review right now. So we should have a formal agreement with them, accepting, the capacity that we're estimating from at least the residential program, and then we did talk to them about the commercial program, but we'll articulate that more in an actual volume in this document. And the other thing is, I don't know why I asked Albertsons this, but I said, why is this the first store you're asking for glass recycling with in Meridian? And they said, because none of our other stores have a bar. So they don't have empty glass. They sell lots of full glass bottles, but they don't have a lot of empty glass bottles. So this is the first store of its kind here in Meridian. So that's why the request is just coming now. So, thank you.
Rochelle, would you believe that there is a desire to have this in place before they open?
Mr. Chairman, I got the sense that they would like to open with it, but I explained the process, though, of adding municipal rates, and I think they understand that it might take a while. So I think they would like it either way. So I think that they're flexible to wait, but if there's an opportunity to add it before October, my guess is they would like to add it before October, and they would be happy to come here and talk to everybody or council about the benefits of glass recycling and why they want it as a company. That's one of their core values, is that they have a sustainability director and things like that. And so they do look for diversion and recycling opportunities, and this is one place where they feel like they could actually divert a lot of heavy material.
Let me go ahead and state that a little bit differently. If you were to go ahead and present your proposed rate change at the February meeting, would that be timely for them, or do we need to pick it up earlier than that?
Mr. Chairman, I think that would be appropriate. I mean, I think that seems like, without heroics, I think that seems like a good timeline. I know I think they said early February, but I'm not certain. But I think that's what would that look like for rate implementation then? If we presented in February, would it still be April or?
So, Mr. Chairman, so in looking at that, if we were to have that discussion on the 27th and the commission were to make a recommendation to move that forward to the city council, it could be on the city council workshop agenda for conversation and direction to move forward, and then which would be March 12th, and then if the council gave direction to move forward with that program, the noticing that's required, which takes a couple weeks, which means it probably wouldn't be on the council's agenda till probably, I would say probably April 2nd for approval.
Okay.
So that's the rough timing it would take to get that. So if you wanted to move the meeting of the SWAC for February to the 20th, that would buy you a little bit of cushion to get it in front of the council a little quicker, and maybe it would get to pass by the end of March instead.
Mr. Chair, can I ask
Carrie,
Rochelle
yes.
a question? I just got a question for Rochelle. In the past, it seems like we hadn't rolled out commercial glass recycling because of the actual volume. So, I mean, we have how many bars in town that have empty glass? And we've never done it because of the sheer volume. And now Albertsons is asking for one store, and now we're in a rush to try to do something. It seems kind of like preferential treatment to me here. So what has changed just in the last couple weeks that we haven't, if we were ready, if Momentum was ready and able to accept all this glass, how come we haven't rolled it out to the existing facilities already, rather than making it a rush now for 2 weeks or a month because Albertsons is getting ready to open another store?
Right, that's a good question. So, Mr. Chairman and Commissioner Glenn, so Momentum really wanted to, like with all programs, it's better to assess the quality of the inbound glass first. And so we actually have had a great response with people who, we had a little bit of a clunky start with residents, but now that that's going well and outreach is going well and the material is really clean that's coming in, and particularly really clean at the drop site, they're willing to let us, add commercial. And commercial is a little bit different. I mean, I feel like we had to take it in small steps, and so they do have the capacity. Momentum is comfortable taking commercial glass in Meridian, and the way commercial glass is designed to be collected, it would be collected in the mini roll-offs with a lid and a hole cut in it, and then dumped in the bunker that we built to hold the glass. So we would have a chance to look at that glass on a case-by-case basis as we dumped each of those containers, rather than running a truck and dumping containers like all into one truck. Each container in Meridian, at this point, we don't have enough customers to run a full route, so it'd be done with the mini roll-offs. And so we would have the ability, as they're added, to take a look at the quality of glass and make sure that it's still clean. So I agree that we have had other wineries and bars ask for glass recycling. So we would reach out to them to know that this was happening and that it would be made available at the same time it would be made available to Albertsons. Just of the ones that have contacted us asking for commercial glass.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I just wanted to make a comment that I see this as a great public outreach and public PR potentially once it goes through the steps to get it approved, because Albertsons got a lot of their own money to go ahead and talk about the city of Meridian and glass recycling. I just think it could be a win-win for the city.
And remind me of our current situation. There's not actually a rate line for residential glass collection because it was
There is, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, there is.
Yeah, we have the option of either using the drop site or having collection at the curb.
Oh, okay. Okay, so I stand corrected. Okay.
For residential. Oh, we do not have a commercial option at this time. Is that what you were asking?
No, I
Sorry.
was asking about the residential.
Oh, okay, yes, we do have residential curbside and residential drop-off.
Okay.
I do have a question about the whole valley. Right now, Meridian's the only one that's doing the glass recycling with Momentum, or not?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that is correct. And Commissioner Nelson, yes. Momentum Recycling is only working with us in the city of Meridian so far. I know Nampa is looking at it, also maybe adding a drop site at our facility off of Garrity. What we try to be really careful of is having Canyon County residents who have historically kind of snuck glass into Boise, now sneaking it into Meridian. So we try to keep an eye on that. About as close as the HHW people do. Like, we watch for license plates and ask questions to make sure they're 1A and Meridian residents.
If I
Yes.
may, Boise and Eagle have a contract with abrasives,
Environmental abrasives.
environmental abrasives, where they pick up glass and then deliver it out there, and it is crushed to be able to, as a alternative to sand for blasting purposes and such. But that firm they have no capacity to expand, so.
Right.
I was just curious if Boise or other municipalities were interested in Momentum also, and that we're gonna bombard them if we add commercial and then other cities start looking at alternatives.
So Commissioner Nelson, yes, Boise has asked about Momentum Recycling, only in the sense that they're, like with any program, I think they are a little nervous because they lost glass recycling once before when there was a contract with ACHD. And so it left them in a bit of a lurch. So they're looking for just some redundancy there and maybe as a backup. But they don't have any plans to send any glass down there or anything like that at this point in time. And I think where they are right now is at a good balance with environmental abrasives. So they can take, environmental abrasives can accept the glass from Eagle and Boise. And they're probably getting a little bit more than they want, but they're able to move through it. And so Momentum at this point is just a Meridian option. And it's a growing option. So as growth in this area continues, that glass goes to the Owens Corning, fiberglass factory. And they don't see any hint of slowing down in the manufacturing in this area of insulation.
That was my next question, is whether they felt that the demand for insulation was the 10-year demand or a continuous demand, because
I know they
to
look
avoid
at,
that same thing where
right, they
we're
look at
all
10-year,
about it.
they look at it 10-year, I guess they look out 10 years, and the Pacific Northwest is expected to continue growing over the next 10 years. So I think that they feel like they're in a good position to continue accepting glass and getting the glass over to, Momentum Glass takes it and then they crush it and then they deliver it to Owens Corning for their 30% mandatory recycled content match. They need that. That's their standard, their company standard. So they need that 30% feedstock every time they make their fiberglass products. So I think they've indicated to us they can take as much as we can give them.
Thank you.
Well, without objection from the commission, I would charge Rochelle to put together this program, work with city staff through David's office to go ahead and make sure that it is coordinated with billing and with legal to make sure that it is appropriate, but for us to pick up consideration at the next regular meeting. Is there any objection by any of the commissioners? Seeing none, then Rochelle, please.
Another project.
And that completes all the business that's on our agenda, so we will go ahead and call this meeting adjourned at 4:45. Thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you.
I hope I can hold it.